What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today here on Forza Horizon 5, there is something I did want to talk about, and I've been thinking about this for a bit recently, and I even admit I probably have been noticing this probably since the launch back in April. That is simply down to the fact that every car does feel different. Now, some of this can be like car slash I guess vehicle and stuff, because we do know there's going to be more than just cars, right? I mean, there's trucks and stuff like that. There is going to be like side by sides and all that stuff. But the biggest thing I did end up noticing is every single car to me really does feel different. Now, the first thing I do want to point out is I'm not saying this is the only racing game that does this or something, because a lot of them do, and some games are probably going to do it better than others. For one, we are probably all going to know that something like Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, some of the cars on there don't feel that great. They kind of feel super light, and they almost don't even feel like you're driving a car sometimes, I have noticed. Not saying that's a bad thing. I do know a game's not going to be like a realistic type of thing, and you could probably see some of these things also pop up when it comes to like an arcade racing game. We all do know even something like Motorfest isn't going to have the best feeling on certain vehicles compared to others. Like, yeah, if you're going to be driving a muscle car, it's probably going to feel a tad different than something like a sports car. But if I was going to play Motorfest and jump onto something like Forza, it, in my opinion, I feel like is going to be a big difference. I've also talked to a few people about this, and they do seem to agree, especially being like newer Forza players. Getting on the game on PlayStation 5, they've said the exact same thing. For example, when I am playing through this game, guys, if you are going to be wondering, there is obviously a lot of different cars again. You're going to have something like a Caterham, which is going to be a very light vehicle. In fact, this was one of my favorite cars to drive back in Need for Speed Most Wanted. And the funny part is the car is going to be considered like a super light, or the vehicle is light. And it definitely does feel like it, man. Like, if you are going back and forth, the vehicle doesn't feel that heavy and stuff. And it almost kind of feels like in some ways that you are going to be driving a car that is probably not going to have a ton of weight to it, like the design of it. And the car is going to feel very agile in most of the areas you are using it in. This is something I did notice, because when I was testing this stuff out and doing different vehicles, I'm like, wait a minute. I kind of want to talk about this in a video, man, because I was driving something like the Caterham. Then I went, well, wait a second, though. Let me go jump into something different. So I did end up jumping into something like the 1930 Bentley, which is pretty much going to be a very old car. I kind of wonder actually gave that away. But this car is going to feel drastically different than something like the Superlight, which, again, I know this is probably going to sound dumb, guys, but I feel like a lot of games could probably fail at something like this, where a lot of the vehicles you drive are all probably going to have a very similar feel to them, right? If you're going to be driving a sports car like a muscle, even a supercar and stuff, sometimes they honestly feel a tad too similar. Like, if you're going to be driving an old Bentley, you're probably going to go, yo, this thing kind of feels like an old Bentley, you know what I'm saying? But if I go back into something like the Caterham, I'm like, yo, this car is different. Now, if we flip that over, though, and then move to something like a big Ford pickup truck, which you guys will see in the background, this thing is also going to feel huge. Like, it is going to feel like it has weight to it. It doesn't feel like you're driving a tiny little car or something like that. No, it legitimately feels like a truck. One thing I did notice is something on Motorfest or something. If you're driving like a street tier 2 vehicle, then you jump into like a rally raid truck, whether it's like a Ford Raptor, it honestly doesn't feel that much different, at least from what I have been noticing in it. The vehicles are going to feel very different. Like, yeah, is the truck going to shift differently and stuff like that? Well, yeah, obviously it's a it's a Ford. It's not going to be like a muscle car or something. But the overall feeling of it, though, I do feel like is a tad too similar in an aspect. Like, if I'm going to be using a trophy truck or something, and then you switch to like a car, or even like the bigger truck, guys, it's kind of insane, because if you drive something like the DeBerti Ford, mess around with that truck a bit, go around a few corners, and then go over to something like a trophy truck, even those two feel different. This is something I have been noticing in Forza. Like, I would legit go into one car and go, yo, that's crazy. Drive the car around for like 5 minutes and go, okay, well, let me go to this one. I would then end up switching to the next car, whether that's going to be like the DeBerti truck from like a trophy truck, and I go, yo, they actually feel different, man. Like, you can tell that the power of the trophy truck is different and stuff. You can almost tell with the way how the big diesel, because I am running a diesel, build in that thing, probably having a V8 or something would make it faster, maybe make it feel like a tad lighter of a vehicle, which is also another aspect there. You could probably engine swap a car and make it heavier and stuff, and with that, you're probably going to feel like the bulkiness of the vehicle or something like that, or know that, yo, this car isn't going to be 2,100 pounds. No, it's like 3,200 now, because you added some stuff stuff into it, and it's going to be different. Kind of like along that line there. But when I was driving different vehicles, this is something I really did notice. On the flip side of it, there's also another part I did notice, guys. So if we really flip over here and go to something else, let's say you're driving something like the Honda Civic Type R, maybe the i30N or something, which I will have footage of these cars in the background because this was really cool to me. If you are going to be driving different vehicles, you guys all know how, again, a lot of the cars in some racing games can feel really similar. Like, yeah, they're not the exact same, but you can kind of tell they like brought the model over to like this car to that one, and you can kind of see how similar they are, which is something I honestly did notice in the Crew Motorfest. Not a terrible thing. I do know the game is going to be like an arcade type, so that's fine, right? I mean, not really that big of a deal. But the thing is, though, if I'm driving something like a Honda Civic Type R or something, I'm like, okay, well, does this thing feel like a Honda Civic? If I was driving this, I'd go back into something like, let's say, a muscle car, maybe a sports car like a Lambo or something like that. You go back into the Civic. Well, the Civic still feels different to me. For example, on this, we all do know the Type R is going to be front-wheel drive. So is the current build I have on the i30. Yes, you can do a rear-wheel drive build if you want, or an all-wheel drive, but the front-wheel drive aspect to it, it really does feel like the vehicle is front-wheel drive. Does that sound kind of dumb? Y'all know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm going to be going around a corner and trying to, like, full throttle that vehicle around it, you can almost feel the car gripping and know that the vehicle that you're driving is front-wheel drive. But that is going to make it inherently feel different than everything else. Like if you switch it to rear, you're going to notice that it's going to handle differently with how the steering is. And the other part of that is you'll also then notice a different handling vehicle if it is going to be all-wheel drive. So it does offer different aspects of driving, because maybe that car you like probably feels different because it's rear. Maybe you then make it like all-wheel drive or something. You have a front-wheel drive, you then make it rear. Like it really does also mix up the gameplay. But with that, it's also going to make the cars feel different, which I feel like is a huge thing. This was something I was discussing with other people. Like if you are driving something like a rally car or something, it is going to feel different than something like an i30. And now again, you can build the vehicles into that, which is incredible. I am going to have a video about like the upgrading system and also the tuning, guys. Stay tuned for it. I personally really do love the way they have it set up in this game with what you can do. Like how many games can you actually all-wheel drive swap like a Type R and then upgrade the motor, do different things, even swap it and then go, okay, well, you know what, I'm done with this, let me go off-road it. You can literally do that in Forza, man. I think that's amazing, and I really feel like other racing games can benefit from things like that, but we all do know how probably hard that is with licensing or even the financial part behind being able to do certain things like that in a game, so I do understand it. But the thing is, though, let's get back on topic here, because I'm kind of going into the tuning and my entire brain just goes toward that because I get so dang hyped up about like the different aspects of Forza, which again, I do feel like, guys, people are probably going to come in and go, well, yeah, Block, the thing is, Forza's more on the sim part of it, which we all can agree this game is going to be more simcade, not like an arcade racer. I would say Motorfest is going to be like an arcade type of racer, even Need for Speed. But I do feel like Forza, for me, though, is going to feel more realistic, and with that, you're probably also going to feel like the proper weight of the different aspects of each vehicle that you drive, and that's something I really do love about it. Like, if I'm driving, again, like a front-wheel drive Civic Type R or something, then I'm like, okay, well, let me go to, like, a rear-wheel drive Lamborghini or something like that, or even, like, a rear-wheel drive muscle car, like the old Dodge Charger from the Fast and Furious thing on here. You are clearly going to feel a difference, not only when the car accelerates, but the way the weight is going to go around corners, and you can tell that the car is heavier and stuff. You can feel the power with how it's putting down, being rear-wheel drive. Like, the car is going to feel different. They're not all going to pretty much feel the same and stuff like that, and I feel like that's a huge thing. In fact, when I was going around a corner with the Rebel, I think it's the AMC Rebel to be exact, the machine or whatever it is, I was like, okay, well, I gotta slow down. When I was slowing down into the corner, I can literally feel the body weight of the vehicle going around that corner, man. Like, that's so dope. Y'all ever play like a racing game or something? Now, again, I do understand arcade games probably get away with this, and they probably even aim at this. But y'all ever feel like you go around a corner and the cars feel too light, or some aspects of the cars are too heavy or something? Like, hey, why does this car feel so heavy? Or something about the way this car handles really does feel off. I really do feel like on Forza Horizon, like, I do understand every game has its issues and stuff, but I'm gonna be real, guys. If you're into cars, which again, I am going to make a video on this, I feel like this game is legit for you. It is so amazing how each car feels different. Like, one night, actually, I think it was like probably like 3 days ago, something like that, I was pretty much driving around, just messing around and stuff, cruising around in my Porsche, and I was like, man, I love the way the GT2 RS feels. This thing is dope. I was cruising around, going around corners, and then switched to the Turbo S. Even the Turbo S felt different with the way that car also was feeling when going around corners. I was then seeing and somehow ran into like a bunch of like 8 or 9 people that were hanging out, which you guys will end up seeing this footage when I do end up doing my 400-hour review. Yes, you did hear that right, 400-hour review. There was around, I think it was like 9 or 10 people all driving BMW. So I'm like, all right, well, I am driving the Turbo S. This thing is all-wheel drive. I can feel the power of this car a bit. It is going to be really fun. This car feels fantastic. But you know what? I kind of want to switch to something like the M5, which again is also all-wheel drive. It is clearly a bigger vehicle than something like a Porsche. It's going to weigh more. And on top of that, it's also going to be all-wheel drive as well. So that is, again, it's okay. So they're both going to have a similar powertrain. Well, they're probably going to feel similar, right? Well, to be honest, no. The BMW M5 CS, when driving that car, compared to something like a 911 GT3 RS or even like the Turbo S, they feel drastically different from each other, which I love. Like, if you're going to be driving a said vehicle, you like it, right? That car is going to feel different, give you like a different experience, so to speak, than something like the BMW. I was driving the M5, I was drifting it around corners, which I will show you guys some of the footage of that in the background so you can't see it. I was pretty much drifting around corners. The car felt so dang stable, and I love the way the BMW felt being all-wheel drive. Obviously, again, the car is bigger, but you can clearly feel like the weight going around the corners and stuff like that. When you're braking, you can feel it. You can also tell when the car's gripping. Then you go into something like the Porsche, though, it's going to feel smaller, it feels lighter, and I just feel like that's so dang dope, man. Now, again, I would probably say some of this might honestly sound kind of dumb, but I gotta admit, playing Forza for a while, guys, currently I'm well over 300-something hours into it. I've been driving a bunch of different vehicles, testing this stuff out, and this is something I could not look past, though. I really have been noticing that different cars are probably going to be something you should experiment with, because they really all do feel so dang different than each other. In fact, that is such a great thing to have in a racing game, because you have over 800 vehicles, but many of them, and I would even say most of them, are still going to feel different than each other. That's pretty dang incredible, man. Like, if you are driving a bunch of cars, they're going to feel similar, which again is something I did end up noticing on Motorfest, like a rally raid and then a street tier 2. Even in some aspects, I noticed like the street tier 1, like if you drive something like a Bel Air, it doesn't feel that great, man. I don't really like the way that the Bel Air feels, and in some ways, I feel like those older cars in that game don't really feel like they have weight to them. When I get on something like Forza, I'm like, yo, this Charger has weight, or this Rebel has weight, or, okay, driving the Plymouth Fury, I could tell this car is older, you could tell by the way that it feels, and I feel like that is such an amazing thing to have in a racing game. And also, speaking of that, though, one last thing I did want to mention in this video, which I would probably say other players are probably going to mention and also talk about, is down to the fact that each car is going to have a different feeling when it does come to steering them. This is something, as a brand new Forza Horizon 5 player, man, I really did end up noticing fairly early on, and it's something you will probably also notice as well, at least if you're going to be a veteran player or like a newer player. Either way, though, if you're going to be driving something like a big F-250 to Birdie truck, and you're probably going to feel like, yo, this thing feels kind of heavy, you can kind of notice like the weight of it and stuff, the way the truck is probably going to turn a tad slower, like, yo, you're driving a big truck, right? If you go switch over to something like a Turbo S, the steering's going to feel a tad quicker, a little more agile, the steering's not going to feel as heavy and stuff like that. And if you go into something like a drift car, you're also going to notice that the steering goes farther, you know, because the wheels probably, you know, come out way farther when you're driving them. You then go into like a Turbo S or like an M5 CS or something, in basically any other vehicle. You jump into like a trophy truck, a buggy and stuff like that. The overall steering aspect is also going to feel different on top of everything else. Like, to be honest, guys, being a brand new Forza Horizon 5 player, like, this is something I really have been noticing a lot the more I am playing it. In fact, when I did end up starting off in this game, this is something I did end up noticing. But driving all kinds of different vehicles, I'm like, yo, this is pretty dang amazing. Jumping in something like the Big Birdie, then going in like a different car, it is amazing how they all feel so dang different. But besides all of that, though, I am curious to know what y'all think about this in the comments below. I was noticing some people discussing this and stuff. Other people were mentioning it to me, and I'm like, yo, I also noticed that as well. Especially being a brand new Forza Horizon player, this is something I had to make a video on and talk about it. But I'm also curious to know what everybody else does think about it. The craziest part is we all do know this game is going to be on the more sim side of it, and I'm definitely noticing that more and more after playing it.